What am I saying again?
This is MPW,
MPW.
the podcast
with your host,
Xylo Aria. Cool.
a podcast about music production
for the everyday musician,
where we learn from experienced studio engineers and each other.
Christa Giammattei is a post-production audio engineer based out of New York. She has worked with notable brands such as IBM, HBO, Volkswagen, and Epic Games. In addition to her full-time work as an audio professional, Christa also founded Command S Apparel, which is a brand featuring clothing inspired by audio engineering and sound.
Hello, Christa. We will jump right into the getting to know you section. So to start with, can you tell us a random fact about yourself that maybe not too many people know?
So I don't know if this is so much random because I do briefly mention it sometimes on my page, on my Instagram page, but I am a huge nerd. I grew up playing video games, watching tons of anime, watching Star Wars, and I still do all of those things. It's still very much part of my life. So I guess my fun fact is that I'm a pretty big nerd and I've been my whole life.
That's awesome. I was a nerd as well. Probably, I think we all are maybe a little bit deep down who started off as nerds. But
Right.
I had this crazy idea, which is just going to sound ridiculous, but I actually had like the cubed and squared tables of numbers like up in my room, and I wanted to try and find this new, you know, cheat way to do it or something. So I just like stare at these numbers. Anyway, I just
love it.
went from nerd to loser there. But anyway.
No, not at all.
Okay, all right, cool. So two self-proclaimed nerds. That's good. The next one is a bit of time travel. So what is one event in your life that you would change? Or if you can't think of something that you would change, is there an event in your life that you feel like you've learnt the most from?
I don't know if I would change any specific events, but if I can give like a broader answer, I will say that when I was younger, I wish that I would have been a bit more spontaneous. I was like a huge like rule follower in all things. And I'm not like advocating for breaking the rules or anything, but like I wish I would have been a little bit more like willing to try new things and do different things while I was younger. Because obviously when you get older, it's a little bit harder you have more responsibility, it's harder to just travel or do different things. So just as a whole, I wish I would have worried a lot less about like my future and just like focused on being a little bit more spontaneous and having fun and enjoying being younger.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's funny because I feel like these kind of things, I don't know if it was the case with your parents, but like you'd hear it from, I would hear it from my parents all the time of like, just enjoy being young and, you don't have any responsibilities at the moment and, life is not that hard for you. And of course, at that time, you'd be like, no, something happened
Right.
at school and like my whole life is falling apart. And and I feel like so many times, years later, I realized that, so my parents did know what they were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you were on a desert island and you could only pick 3 songs or albums to bring with you, what would they be?
Ooh. So anything by Porter Robinson. Nurture is the last album that was just put out. I love Porter Robinson stuff. It's amazing. So anything there. And then probably there's a video game soundtrack that has like a special place in my heart. It's the Kingdom Hearts OST. That soundtrack is what inspired me to be a musician, which later led me to work in audio. So it has like a special place in my heart. And then just to like add some variety, maybe like Paramore Riot is a great album. And it also like had a chokehold on me in my younger years. So yeah, I'll go with those.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. And who has been a great role model for you?
If you're a woman in audio, you're a role model to me. But I mean, specifically, like there's a lot of really, really awesome women that have like paved the way in post that I really look up to and have for my whole career. Some like Nia Hansen is one. Paula Fairfield is awesome. I think she was at the Sound Girls virtual conference most recently last year, and she was awesome. And then like Leslie Ann Jones is also like a big post-production person. So all of them I've like really looked up to throughout my career as like the guide and beacon of like, I could do this thing. I could do it. So
For sure, for sure. I love that. Yeah, so true. And can you tell me a bit about Command plus S Apparel, which is a brand featuring clothing inspired by audio engineering and sound, which you run?
yes, I would love to. So Command S Apparel was just born from me trying to find a audio merch, something or other to wear, just because it's so much a part of my life. Obviously, it's like my job and kind of my hobby and my love and my interest. And I was trying to find something to wear that wasn't embarrassingly cheesy and or it just didn't relate to me at all. And I couldn't find a single thing online. I looked for a long time, and a lot of them either said sound guy or like one of those generic job shirts that just like copied and pasted the job title on there. Sort of just started making designs for myself that I wanted to wear. And then a couple people were like, hey, you should sell this. Like, I'd buy it. So I started doing that. And then it kind of just blew up from there. And so now I've just been designing a bunch of stuff and posting it for a lot of people to buy, which has been really interesting and great. And I've met so many awesome people through it. And yeah, so it's basically just like a brand focused on selling audio apparel that is a little bit more subtle, but more unique as well. And it's supposed to be like I kind of designed it to be more inclusive. Like there's no like particular gender or anything associated with any of the designs. It's just whatever you want to wear is associated with audio is what you have. And I really like that. And yeah, it means a lot to me. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and I love that you you started it for something that you wanted and it's just grown into something else. And this is going to sound really sad, but I just realized as you were saying Command S Apparel, I was like, oh yeah, Command S as in save.
Yep. Yeah. That's
and I've seen the account for so long and it finally just clicked.
Yeah, I found myself going like, I say it out loud to myself now when I'm working just because like I've gotten in such a habit. So like when I was working, I found myself going Command S, Command S, Command S, Command S. And so when I was making this like t-shirt thing, I was like, what do I name this? And I was like working on a project and I was like, Command S, Command S. And I was like, you know what? Command S.
Command S. Oh no, that's great. Probably the most important shortcut ever.
Exactly. Yes. So important.
So jumping into your career as a post-production audio engineer. So tell me a bit about what sparked your interest in audio and how did you become an audio engineer?
So I was a musician throughout a lot of my life. Middle school, high school, I was in the drum line. I played piano a little bit. And it meant a lot to me. And then, like I mentioned before, I was like a huge nerd. So I was playing a lot of games and watching a lot of films. And I started to have these moments where when I was watching the films, I was paying a lot of attention to the score and to the sounds. And I started like geeking out over the sounds and being like, you know what, this might be something that I want to do in the future. You know, is this a career that exists out there? I didn't even know. And so I kind of went in with the intention of doing something with music. Like I wanted to be a composer or something along those lines because that's all I knew about. And eventually I started to I realized that I didn't want to be so skilled at music that I had to practice all the time. And I didn't want to be a performer. I didn't want to be a teacher because I was like, wow, that's so high level. That's beyond me. It's really difficult. So I just started Googling jobs that are not music performance or teaching, but are in the industry. And eventually I found audio engineering, and it was never something that was told to me. No one ever told me that was a career that I could do. So I didn't even know until I found it. I started researching more about it. And I found a program that I had to audition for. Luckily, it had auditioned on instruments and stuff. So I had that kind of background to get in. And then once I got into the program, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't even really know what audio engineering entailed at the time. And once I got into the program and I started doing like the couple of projects, I realized that this was what I had been searching for the whole time. And from then on, it was just like, this is exactly what I want to do. And I like have not deviated from that since that moment. But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And you seem very focused on once you found the thing to just kind of go hard and just work towards that.
Yeah, I think it's rare sometimes. Like, not everybody can, is able to find the thing that is like their job that they want to do for the rest of their life that makes them happy. And so I was grateful. I was like, I found the spark. Like, I'm not letting this go ever.
It's so true. It's so true. I feel like I hear that all the time. Even running MPW, I absolutely love what I do every day.
Yeah.
And so many people are like, oh, you're lucky that you found that because I don't have the thing that I'm really passionate about. And yeah, so in that sense, definitely, I think we're a bit lucky. And maybe the thing there, though, for anyone that's in that category, is to just not stop searching. Just keep going until you find the thing that's for you. Talking a bit about inspiration, especially with your work as a sound designer as well, where do you get your ideas from? And is there a specific activity that you do to generate ideas?
I usually will watch things that inspire me, like different films and things that have always like just baffled me with how great the sound is, or sometimes new things that I'm watching that I'm like, whoa, this is awesome, and I'll take note of it to go back to and listen to again, to kind of like try and pick it apart. Anytime I'm like in a writer's block or trying to find new ideas or just trying to like get around, try and figure something out, a lot of times I will walk away. I feel like that helps me the most. And then in that moment of walking away, I will like go to something that I know and love, that I just love so much the sound or love the music for it. And I will try and like see how those vibes might translate to what I'm working on.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And how would you capture and keep track of these ideas?
I'm probably pretty bad overall about this. One of the things that I've like gotten a lot better at since the start of my career was organization. I used to be very, very bad. So yeah, if you're listening to this, definitely get better at organization when you're starting your career and not in the middle of it, because it's much harder later on. But I'm kind of one of those people that, and this probably is not the best approach either, but it's just what works for me, where if I have an idea and it doesn't work, I normally just delete it. I usually, when I'm working on projects, I like to like start from a new perspective or like start from my new experience level. And so if I'm doing something and it doesn't work, normally like I won't keep track of it too much. I'll put it away, and I normally won't go back to it unless like I'm doing something and I create the most amazing sound, and then like a director or producer comes back to me and is like, yeah, we don't really want that. Then I'll probably save that. And I usually have like a sound library folder that I will just pile stuff in that's my own sounds that I'm like, okay, this is really cool for future reference. When I did music, I used to voice memo everything, every idea I had. I stored in my voice memo on my phone. And now for like a more accounting related approach, now I have like spreadsheets for like all the projects that I'm working on and the different like invoices paid in, paid out, and also like different ideas or like feelings associated with those. I keep track of that way, just because at this point it's like there's so much going on that I'm like, wait, what was this project? Like, what was the vibe for this project? Okay, yeah, let me go back to that again. But yeah.
Okay. So a few different things there. Definitely a big fan of the voice note on the phone.
Yes.
And I've not found a good system of actually keeping track of them. They're just like, yeah, a huge bunch of recordings
Yeah.
on my phone. And okay, so your approach, I guess, is to only save the better ideas or something that's kind of turned into something else.
Yeah,
Which
it's very
is-
rare that I save anything that I'm working on that doesn't work. And that's something that I've had to learn too in this like field is just learning to delete things. I used to save everything, and it doesn't always work. And sometimes you do spend an hour on something only to get to the end and be like, well, this doesn't work at all, and I have to start over. And the best thing to do is just to delete it all and do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. That's great. And how would you say you create and develop stories through sound?
This is an interesting question because I feel like in a lot of ways, music production and post production relate. And I feel like when you're doing post production audio, there is a certain like rhythm to it that translates into being able to tell the story. And one of the biggest differences between music production and post production is that in music production, the music is the core focus, right? Like there's nothing else happening. You're listening to the music, you're immersed in that, and you're very focused on it. But in post production, sound is supposed to be kind of secondary to what's going on. Like if you're noticing the sound, you're usually wrong. Like you're out of place. You need to back off a little bit. And your goal is to support the overall narrative of whatever's going on. And so I think like recognizing that and then learning how to tell that creative story with that kind of mindset, like what is the emotion that needs to be conveyed in this scene particularly? Like what is the rhythm that, would fit, with the music that I'm editing? Like, how can I edit this sound design to have this flow really well? Or like, do I need it to flow well? Like maybe I need it to be really staccato and harsh, or maybe I need it to be quiet. And I think like being in music helps you analyze those points a lot easier, because if you're not a musician, then you don't really understand those kinds of like nuances of like, or maybe if you do, it's much harder to get there to learn those things, of just like, when to have quietness, or like, when loud sound should come after quiet moments and things like that. And if you're a musician, those things are kind of just ingrained into your mind and you just know them subconsciously. And so a lot of what I do when I'm like helping to create these stories is just keeping in mind, like, how can I do this to support the overall narrative in the best way possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And if you get a brief for like a sound design project, for example, for maybe a video game, what kind of things would they include in that? Would it be like a genre that they would specify, or like a feel, or what would they give you to work with?
It depends on the director and also like what category you're working in. For example, like commercial advertising, you probably will get more like descriptive words. Like a lot of times I get like, this is energizing, upbeat, exciting, thrown at me, and that's it, because that's all you really need. And then for like a documentary, it might be like much more in depth. It might be like, this is a deep introspection in regards to, the war on yada yada. So, we need to make sure that this is kind of a reflection of that. And then like, video games is also much different, because then you're dealing with like one-off sounds. So, it might be like, well, for this, it's really intense. Just, usually for video game sounds done, I just get like rocks exploding harshly or like big bomb or something like that. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on the director too. Like I said, like sometimes you get directors that are like really like they have a huge idea of exactly what kind of vibe they want the sound to go for, especially if the director has previous sound experience. Then you get a lot of detail on like, I want, a drone here, and I want, this, that, and the other happening here, very sci-fi-esque, yada, yada. And then sometimes you get directors that are like, here's the overall vibe of the piece, I trust you, surprise me. So it depends on the director, but I'll say like for commercials, usually it's like pretty short descriptions. And then for like documentaries and things, it's more about like the overall emotions being conveyed and that kind of thing.
And are there any downsides to being a woman in this line of work?
I don't know if I'd say that they're downsides, but maybe like obstacles, more obstacles that we face. Because I don't like consider anything like a downside of being in this line of work. But I will say that like there are some obstacles that I've faced that I feel like male counterparts would not face or have not faced. Like I've been, when I worked in music, I did a little bit of live sound, and I, got dismissed a lot more often, or I mean, pretty much all the time compared to the other guys that were there. I got looked at as like somebody's wife or somebody's girlfriend or somebody's sister, or, et cetera. And so I feel like, an obstacle is that we're easily dismissed. I feel like we need to have a higher technical skill to stand on because we're more easily doubted. And another thing that I feel like is kind of like a stereotypical perception of like women, especially like in the industry, is that we have like higher emotions. And so there have been times where like things that I've said or acted have been taken as like an extreme reaction when like that's totally not how it was at all. And I think it's just the stereotype that like women are more emotional. And so men take it a lot more like differently, I feel like. And so that's something I've sort of had to navigate and learn how to explore. And it's gotten easier over time as I, built my business and I realized who to work with and who not to work with. Be like, oh, they don't respect that. Okay, moving on. And then I'm able to just, pick and choose. But I will say like at the beginning, it was a lot harder. And there are still disadvantages or like obstacles that you have to face in order to break into the industry. But I will say that I have noticed such an improvement even since I went to college and got out of college and started pursuing the career. I've noticed like those barriers getting less and less. And there's so much more women in the industry that are willing to like give you a helping hand up. And that's something that I think is so helpful and so amazing is like just the community of women that surrounds just this industry in music and in posts and anything else is like everyone's there to help you if you just reach out. So there are obstacles, but there are hands to help you around and over the obstacles.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, I think a lot of women are aware of these obstacles, obviously, and the conversation can quickly become quite negative around this sort of stuff. But I love your attitude towards it. It's like, okay, it's there. It's, we've accepted it, unfortunately, but how are we going to move past it and help each other out? So love that. Now we're just going to get into a super quick speed quiz of this or that. So just 5 questions, Christa. So get ready for it. Okay, so quick fire. First on, Mac or PC?
Mac.
Spotify or Apple Music?
Spotify.
Live DJ or live band?
Live band.
Digital or analog?
I'll say digital because I don't really have that much analog. To be fair.
Quality or vibe?
Vibe.
Okay. All right. That was great.
Was that good? I tried to go fast.
That was good.
I feel like
speed.
my first one was very like aggressive. Mac.
Mac, obviously. Oh no, I'd be the same. And I was actually a staunch like PC user before. And then until I changed and I was like, oh my God, why did I spend so long using
that was me.
All right. So just to round things off into our top tips. So do you want to give us one top career tip?
I feel like I may have touched on this a bit, but don't be afraid to like experiment with new sounds and what you're doing. If it's like unconventional, it doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that's something I had to like really break out of habit wise is like I always did things by the book for a really long time. And I kind of came from a background of like, if it's not exactly like how it's written, then you can't do it or like it's not how it's supposed to be. But one of the greatest parts about like our career is that like it's so creative and there are really no rules. Like there are guidelines, but there's no rules. Isn't that like a Jack Sparrow quote? It's only guidelines. I feel like that is like our career. Like there's guidelines, but like there's really no rules. You can do whatever you want. And so if I had to like give any advice to, especially like for people starting out, I would say like experiment like crazy. Like if it's not supposed to go in that plugin, put it in the plugin and see what happens. Like, if you're not supposed to do that with that instrument, like do it and see like what happens, because that's how you're going to develop your unique style. And that's what ultimately is going to make people hire you because they want you to have a unique style. And like, why would they pick you over someone else? Well, you have these, cool vibe to your sounds that they really like and enjoy and fits their project. So I would say experiment all the time.
Okay, that's great. Love it. And the next one is a top tip on self-care.
Take breaks. I'll say take breaks, and not even necessarily just short ones, which I think you should also take if you can, short breaks when you're working all day, but also long breaks. Like, don't forget to step away from the studio every once in a while. Take a week or two and go outside or just go somewhere new and experience the world, because I think part of being a creative and like getting inspired is seeing new things. So take breaks and be away from the studio for a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. And one top tip just on life in general.
Don't ever be afraid to do anything. Just like never let fear hold you back from anything that you want to do. It's never too late to start, and it's never too early. Like, it's, you're right on time, and if you start now, then you'll be way ahead from later on when you would have doubted yourself. So yeah, I would just say if you want to do something, you should just do it.